And hello folks, welcome to the On Two Axles channel. So we are in the midst of charging up the car to full, and that's because today we're going to see just how much highway the BYD Sealion 7 can eat up on a full charge. Highway driving, this is the all-wheel drive variant. Now in Southeast Asia, the all-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive have the same 82.5 kilowatt hour battery. So you can see here I'm at 95%, almost charged. And what we'll do is we'll look at some of our data. I've accumulated 17.7 kilometers on as an average so far, 17.7 kilowatt hours. Now, let's just take a minute here. I think I've discovered a bit of a bug. You see how here the odometer says 3,195 kilometers? That's not true. I've only driven 2,805. But on my trip odometer, I have 390 kilometers showing, which is the difference between 3195 and 2805. So I'm not quite sure what's happening here. When I'm going to reset this data, I'm going to clear out this data to 0 so we have some data we can look at after the trip. But if anyone understands these odometer readings and why it jumps from 3195 back down to 2805, let me know. Have I discovered a bug in the BYD infotainment system, or maybe I'm just not understanding? Anyways, back to it. So yes, I'm going to reset this data, and now you can see we're 95%, and here's it showing 2805 kilometers and an average of 17.6 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometer over the lifetime of the car. Driving time and average speed is set. So here I'm using the BYD map to measure the EV reachable range based on the current charge. I know that there is a station that I'd like to get to that's going to be 337 kilometers of my 700 or so kilometer journey. But the station I want to go to does not show on this map. It's not here. So what I'm doing here is I'm searching in the area of where I want to head to see if the station I want to go to shows up, and it doesn't. And so the other way I'm trying to do this is hit the gas station icon, and it's going to show me all the recharging stations within a certain radius of where I am. And as I scroll through that list, it's showing me more and more stations further and further away, and I'm hoping it's going to eventually show me the one that I want to go to 337 kilometers from here. However, there seems to be a limit on this of about 80 kilometers. It's not showing me any stations more than 80 kilometers away. So I thought, okay, let's drag the map and see if I can find the station I want to go to that way. And again, I run out of stations as I scroll through the map, moving northwards as it is. Further and further away from my location, charging stations are not showing up. Even when I pinch and zoom in on a certain area, I'm not getting any data. So using this app for navigating to the next station isn't really ideal. So I have a workaround that I'm going to show you in a second. But now we're 100%, and that's 527 kilometers of range. I think it'll end up being a bit more than that by the time I get going. But anyways, let's get unplugged, and I need to set up the navigation, and then we'll get going. Alright, the range has jumped up to 532 kilometers. Here's some of my charging details. This is from the app that I use, the charging station app. We charged for about 52 minutes. I put in 62.4 kilowatt hours of power, and that gave me an additional range of about 300 kilometers, and they charged me 482 baht for that. And the other thing I can do with the charging station app is I can find charging stations on the map that I want to go to. So I'm going to scroll up to find that station where I would like to go to, that I'd like to navigate to. This one here. So here I can select that station, and I can hit navigate, and then selecting Android Auto here, it's put this onto the map for me, showing that it's going to take me about 6 hours to get there. It's 442 kilometers with a range of 532 kilometers. So I should arrive with about 100 kilometers less or so of range remaining. Let's see. And okay, so we've been driving for a little while, 75% now remaining, 382 kilometers range. And I've got the cruise control, the adaptive cruise set for about 115 kilometers per hour. And sometimes I'm only able to do about 100 kilometers an hour, which is what I'm doing here due to traffic. And there's a fair amount of construction along the way that's slowing me down, and so even though I'm trying to go at speeds above 100, which I'm doing here, can't always do that. So here we are at 50% battery power and 246 kilometers showing on the clock, and I can anticipate that we're gonna make it, but it's gonna be tight. Whereas before I thought there'd be about 100 kilometers range left on the vehicle when we arrive at the charging station. At the rate we're consuming power, it's not going to be that. I think we're just going to be able to make the station, but we're not going to have a lot of distance left on the clock when we do finally get there. Okay, so now we are at 25% and 116 kilometers of range left in the vehicle. We have 59 kilometers to go to 78 kilometers to go to our next station. So it's getting tight, but we should make it. Let's see. Also, I should say I'm using eco mode for this entire trip, and regenerative braking is set on high, and I'm using the intelligent cruise control feature as often as I can. Okay, and we are at the charging station with 7% battery remaining, 31 kilometers on the clock. I actually stopped at a station a bit before the one I had planned on. Probably could have made the initial station, but wasn't sure it would be tight. This shows the charging station app that I use. This is what the screen looks like as I'm charging. This is the BYD app, which also shows you what the screen looks like while the car is charging. All right, we're back on the road. This is the final leg, and when we get to the end, we'll look at some final numbers. This is actually footage from an earlier drive, but it's the same route, same kind of driving. It gives you a sense of what it's like to drive here with these trucks that just will not stay in the left lane, but drive incredibly slow, forcing me down to 70 kilometers an hour when I'd like to be doing 115 to 120. So my average speed is going to take a hit because of this fact. And we are there. Drove almost 9 hours at an average of 77 kilometers per hour. Now, when I shut the car off here, we're going to get some data from our last charge. Since our last charge, we used 54.8 kilowatt hours of power for 315. And here we are with our final numbers. The highway range of the BYD Sealion 7 all-wheel drive 82.5 kilowatt hour battery is 395 kilometers, with a highway efficiency of 19.03 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. That's data based on almost 700 kilometers of driving over about 9 hours, with an average speed of 77 kilometers per hour. Total energy used 131.625 kilowatt hours. So take this into account. It was good weather, no rain, just the heavy traffic to slow me down. Thanks for watching. Take it easy. Talk to you later.